everyone. So for today, we will be discussing about biodiversity and healthy society. And we have here the learning outcomes. At the end of the discussion, the learners should be able to define what biodiversity is, explain the impact of biodiversity on human growth, and apply how we can protect our environment by knowing the signs of contamination. Okay, so first of all, we are familiar already with biodiversity. But today we are going to refresh the stock knowledge of yours and we'll be discussing biodiversity. So, biodiversity is the different species of our plants and animals as well as the places they live. For example, sa plants, ang atong mga trees, diba? They are very essential to our daily life. And sa animals, consider kanang fish, mga carabaos, cows, chicken, and as well as the places they live. Monay biodiversity. Different species of our plants and animals. So that different species of our plants and animals altogether they give us all our needs in our life, like food, clear drinking water, crisp air, medicines, and provide us our homes. So biodiversity is like a safety net. In what way that biodiversity is like a safety net? Okay, so we take into consideration that these different species of plants and animals are the threads of that safety net. So the more species or the more threads that intertwine together, the more we have a safety environment. Or, for example, the trees. Ang daghan kita og mga trees. So, tapos ang atong sea, atong ocean, atong gina-protect. Wala ato ginalabayan og mga hugaw. So, kato siya mo foster ang ang environment dito nga mga species, and that will make us the safety net that would lessen or banish climate change. Diba mo na siya nga gina-consider ang biodiversity as humans safety net. Okay, so my groupmate Arabella will discuss to you the impact of biodiversity on human life, human population growth, pollution and destruction in our environment, as well as the destruction of habitat.
The impact of biodiversity to human life. Human species is dependent for its survival on its successful interaction with Earth's plant and animal species. Ultimately, it is a subject of the same limitation to growth as any other species. Humans are niche in nature as they are capable of thinking, planning, and technological beings unlike any other species. Due to their ability to use technology, its population is growing virtually unchecked by the natural factors that limit the species population. These technologies have had significant impacts on the natural world by producing materials that pollute the air, water, and soil. Its activities increasingly displacing or destroying natural habitats and their ecological communities, reducing biodiversity and endangering the survival of many, if not all, Earth's living things. Biodiversity plays a crucial role in supporting human life and well-being. It contributes to ecosystem like pollination, clean air and water, soil fertility, and disease regulation. Diverse ecosystem also enhance resilience to environmental changes, providing resources for medicine, food, and materials. Ultimately, biodiversity is interconnected with human health, economies, and cultural values. Loss of biodiversity can lead to ecological imbalances, impacting human well-being and disrupting vital ecosystem. Conserving biodiversity is essential for sustainable development and long-term health of the planet. Human population growth. Human population growth has risen at a very rapid rate over the past centuries. The development of medical technology has reduced the incidence of disease in many parts of the world. Modern agriculture had reduced the likelihood of starvation in a developed nation. The rapid increase of human population and technology that support this growth has put extreme pressure on the natural world, threatening the survival of natural species and habitat. Human species rapidly approaching a point where it will be unable to sustain continued growth. Pollution and destruction in our environment. Technological and industrial processes have to lead the production of chemical byproducts that are harmful or toxic to living things. Such toxic chemicals have contributed to our global environmental pollution. Pollutants example are acidic ions, pesticides that when released into the environment, these pollutants contaminates water, air, and or soil. This would make the survival of natural species difficult or impossible. Industrial byproducts such as dioxin pose similar dangers to many species. The rapid and advancement of technology leads to disposal of obsolete electronic devices contributing to electronic waste. Improper disposal can release harmful chemicals into the environment. The production, use, and disposal of plastic contribute to pollution in oceans and land. Plastic waste possesses a significant threat to wildlife and ecosystem. Examples are also mining, nuclear energy. Efforts to mitigate these impacts involve development and adoption of cleaner technologies, sustainable practices, and increased awareness of developmental consequences of technological advancement. Destruction of habitat. Humans have used their technologies to remove trees and other plant life from wide areas of their natural habitat for the purpose of creating agricultural lands, industrial zones, roadways, or residential and commercial developments. Humans also drained, filled, redirected wetlands, ponds, streams, and other natural water habitats for the same purpose. The destruction of habitats is often linked to various human activities and technologies. Deforestation driven by logging and agriculture, urbanization, pollution from industrial processes, and climate change due to burning fossil fuels are major contributors to habitat destruction. Technologies like heavy machinery, advanced logging equipment, and intensive agricultural practices can amplify the impact on ecosystem, accelerating habitat loss and negatively affecting biodiversity. Living in 21st century, educational technologies can contribute by raising awareness about biodiversity and promoting environmental stewardship. It's important to balance technological advancement with responsible and sustainable practices to ensure that technology itself does not inadvertently contribute to the degradation of biodiversity. The preservation and sustainable management of biodiversity are integral for the continued health and prosperity for both ecosystem and human societies. Thank you.
In continuation to our rebellious discussion, we will now move on to exploitation of animals and plants. So, some animals are killed for its horns, and elephants for its tusks, tigers and other species for its pelts. For what? For using it into making a designer clothes, designer jackets, and everything that human desires to. muna siya exploitation sa atong animals. If you can remember last time, that's in a pandemic era, there is a video of a mouse, a rabbit ba to, nga gigamit ila ang balihibo para gamon og designer clothes. And grabe kaya ang epekto sa ila ang environment or sa ila ang species ato nga time. Kung nakahinumdum pa mo basta wala ko na sayop, grabe ket nakaiyak ko ato nga time. So each exploited species is to one degree or another in danger of extinction because of these exploitations. Siyempre, it will affect the biodiversity. It will affect the environment of these animals that are being exploited just because they are high at cost. Grabe kayo ang makuha nga kwarta sa tao. So, in an activity called as direct harvesting, humans have removed plants from the ecosystem for their economic value without regarding the effect of its removal to the natural ecosystem. So, ginabawal ang tugas kaon sa forest. Why? Okay? Helpful kay na siya nga tree, right? Sa pagbugong sa landslide, na siya pagbugong sa landslide, sa soil erosion, mo na siyang ginabawal siya, diba? Pero ginakuha yaman sa mga tao. Forest trees were directly harvested from our mountains to provide lumber for building purposes and denuded in the process, allowing fragile soils to be washed away. Manaday flash floods, landslides, kaya aganing mga direct harvesting of trees. So worldwide, direct harvesting activities for exotic hardwoods in tropical rainforests has resulted in similar habitat destruction and loss of biodiversity. Okay, so we will now proceed to the science of environmental contamination. Some researchers suspect that toxic chemicals such as chlorine, hydrogen cyanide, nitrous oxide, and many more toxic chemicals, byproducts such as gasoline, plastic bags, heavy metals such as gold, silver, aluminum, copper, iron, pesticides such as fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, and hormones such as insulin, estrogen, cortisol, progesterone, and pharmaceuticals such as antibiotics, vaccines, human blood plasma fractions, and steroid hormones, and also other contaminants are responsible for an increased frequency in the formation of illnesses in population worldwide. So that causes that the environment become contaminated. So mo na yung mga suspect sa some researchers. Okay. So when can we know that the environment of our animals are contaminated? So it is when reproductive cycle disruption in birds as a result of high concentrations of pesticides. So, gamit jud og pesticides, mo na yung makakause og contamination sa environment sa mga birds. So, when there is deaths in population, declines of birds and fish linked to contamination from oil spills. Diba, we are familiar with kanang oil spills atong ocean. So, maka-affect siya sa mga fishes. Also, animals' environment is contaminated when there is deaths and disorientation of marine mammals such as tortoise and whales, possibly due to coastal pollutant runoff. Gikan sa um, pabrika, gikan sa mga buildings na nag-pollute sa water. So, mula gini ang contaminated waters. Then, examples of human contaminated environment. Adverse health effects linked to chemical exposure are increasingly prevalent among infancy and childhood since they spend more energy, requires more food, water, and oxygen than adults. So young children are likely to take in more toxic chemicals. So when your community is having children nga kanang naay mga asthma, nagsakit-sakit sa panit, that means that your place or your community is kanang contaminated. Then, incidence of birth defects and disease linked to environmental pollution has risen among children living in environmentally contaminated areas of the world. So, mga birth defects such as na mga cerebral palsy, diba? Dahil na mga birth defects bitaw siya. We all know kanang about mga dili siya normal paggawas ang baby. Then, childhood cancer, chronic lung diseases, childhood asthma are experienced today by children living in contaminated communities. Okay, so next is the consumption of energy. So the world industrialized nation have been used tremendous quantity of energy to fuel their businesses. So, to run various technologies, we need energy, especially when you are doing business. Okay, they are making money, man. So, developed countries like United States and England had long been the major consumers of energy. So that means those developed countries are the most contributor of the destruction of natural habitat. Okay, kusog sila mo gamit og energy. As China, it is now a major consumer of petroleum as a source of energy to operate its growing economy. Same lang gihapon developed country ang China and is using petroleum. Petroleum is still contaminating the environment. So for some time, the source of energy has changed with traditional water, wood, coal, and oil gradually being replaced with natural gas, wind, wave, or tidal, nuclear, solar, geothermal, and fuel cells technology. So, human species are advanced in terms of having the capabilities to think, to do these things. Imagine you are extracting energy from natural gas, from wind, from solar system, diba? Yet, the problem here is it has a negative effect to the natural environment. So, nasya ka ng epekto. Yes, of course, it helps our daily lives to be more convenient, to be more easy, but the negative effect it is distracting and grabe. We cannot imagine how the world will be kung magpadayon in ani kina-distract nato ang natural habitat sa biodiversity. So, unsa na lang mahitabo sa mga sa next generations, wala na sila madaw-daw. Kaya nahurot na. So, last is fossils for fuels. For the past 200 years, fossil fuels are commonly used as an energy source but gyapon siya. So it is obtained from underground deposits formed million years ago by biological and geological processes. So, ang chemical na ginaproduce aning fossil fuels, ma-release na siya into the atmosphere and contributes to the worldwide air pollution as well as the phenomenon called acid rain. So, maning magka-asthma ang mga bata agyan ng acid rain. So, kaning acid rain, from the combination na siya, imagine how kanang grabe ka ang destruction aning acid rain, grabe ka kuan sa mga tao, sa mga humans. Okay. Acid rain is from the combination of sulfur and nitrogen oxide ions with atmospheric water to produce sulfuric and nitric acids. So when it rains, kaning nga acids, dili lang sa human siya na ay epekto, kundi sa aquatic systems. Because it leads to alteration and elimination of acid-base sensitive species of fish and amphibians in the ecosystem. So, although na protection, nasa kanang acid-base, still ang acid rain is maka-destruct gyapon siya, maguba gyapon niya ang sensitive species of fish and amphibians. And also, burning these fossil fuels had been linked to the global warming that we are experiencing today. The extreme heat from the sun, grabe kayo ang global warming, the climate change, there are heavy floods, flash floods, yung grabe ang magnitude sa earthquakes. So that would be all for our report. So as we finish discussing this tremendous phenomena na grabe naka-affect sa biodiversity, as a responsible citizen, we must at least keep in mind that we need to plant more trees. Okay, before we die, we have to plant trees. We have to practice our child or our sisters and brothers the proper segregation of wastes, to clean the environment. Basta na maka-contribute ta sa pagpaningkamot sa natural world na mabalik siya the way it is. Sa una nga, wala pa kaayo yung mga innovations sa technology and science. Though, yes, science and technology had been very helpful to us, to our daily lives, but still we cannot deny the fact that the natural world is more important than what we are having today in the sense that we enjoy this convenient way of living. So, mura na siya. That's all I can say, as I have realized how devastated or how the biodiversity had been destructed all these years. So, that would be all. I am Ruby Cañete, and thank you.